Hello and welcome to Easy Economics. I'm Siddharth Zarabi, and today on the episode with us is Dr. Thomas Mathew, a person who spent a lifetime in the steel frame that still runs India, the Indian Administrative Service, someone who spent many years in the Defense Ministry, in the Finance Ministry, and been responsible for lots of groundbreaking policies. And now today, he joins us with a different sort of Aston, as you can see on your screen, that of an author, not his first time of course, but the author of what is clearly one of the best and most fascinating tomes that I have laid my hands on any corporate icon in India, Ratan Tata. And this book, 666 pages plus many, is both the effort of many hours of interviews granted by the late Ratan Tata to Thomas Mathew, but also, as one can very clearly see from the text, from the manner in which it is written, it's the love of labor and something that is a tribute by the author to Mr. Tata as someone who's done so many groundbreaking things in corporate India. Dr. Mathew, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for your time with us today.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you for having me. It is always a pleasure talking with you, my friend.
So the front cover, viewers, that I showed you was this iconic picture, but then there's another one right at the back. So, take a look. I want to start, Dr. Mathew is part of R&T's glamour, his recall
good
value.
Looks.
Yes, good
his
looks.
Good looks, his hazel eyes.
Good looks, hazel eyes, 6 feet plus, and a very sharp sense of dressing. When did you get to know that he only preferred Italian brand for his suits?
That's one of his weak moments, he confessed to me. But otherwise, please understand, he doesn't wear expensive suits. Otherwise, he gets his denim trousers and shirt. A commonplace shop in, near Halakai's home. Only when he's formally dressed, he can be as formal anybody can be. So that's what he is for you.
But the check shirts, Dr. Mathew, the check shirts, do they go back to his years in Cornell and seeing, Americans dressed in check shirts and blue denims?
See, I'll tell you something. His fascination for check shirts, as far as I can understand, started from his childhood. Even as a schoolboy, I've seen almost all his photographs in check shirts. And I asked him, I used to tease him about his fascination for check shirts. And, said, I would like, since you started with the front cover, I don't know if you have noticed it. Not many people have noticed it. Have you noticed the color scheme of the book?
Absolutely. Blue, white, pretty stark, pretty clean.
Now, there is something more obvious than what meets the eye. You know what it is? It is the brand color of Tatas.
Okay.
Blue and white. So you see the blue slowly turning into white. So much of thought has gone into it. And the jacket photo, the rare jacket photo, we pulled out from his college days and enlarged it. And that is a stopper for everybody. And with all due respects to the fairer sex, when they see that photograph, everybody stops and says, oh my God, what a handsome man he is.
Well, very clearly. There's one more innovation, and those who read books and still are in love with the printed word and the feel of a book, there's a QR code here. And there are no footnotes. What is the mystery behind this QR code? I haven't still scanned it. If I do, what will come up?
I think the QR code has foxed many a journalist. I'm not naming anybody. Somebody said the book lacks, good editorial oversight because there are no footnotes, there are no endnotes. But Sid, let me tell you something. This book, in parts and segments, are very dense. That's because R&T is about big bang economic reforms. And we have a lot of data, a lot of statistics have been analyzed. And I believe that is appended almost 80 to 90% of the existing narratives. So therefore, we have about 3,900 to 4,000 footnotes. And the publisher said, sorry, we can't do this because the book would go to about 1,100 pages. So they said, we can't even do footnotes, so we will do notes. And they said, we'll put in the QR code. So that's what it is all about. So therefore, it is seamless. It is easy. People who do want to do serious research like you, I guess, will go into the QR code and see. That's what the QR code is all about, Sid.
Viewers, please do scan these QR codes, both at the front and the back. But Dr. Mathew, let's come into the meat of the book. And before I ask you that question, one more quick clarification, because you spoke about some comments. You've been accused of showing excessive reverence to Ratan Tata. But as I was doing a bit of a read up, I realized that this is not a book that has been commissioned by the House of Tatas or by Ratan Tata himself. So how did you come about to this book, and what did it mean for you in terms of your personal involvement?
Sid, it was just happen chance. It just happened. You know, me and my son were at his home for dinner, and my son and he got talking. And then he started talking about the highlights of his life. It was absolutely fascinating. And I said, if this is a kind of life he led, and this is a kind of principles he held very close to his heart, then the world should know, Indians should know, future generations should know. So in zest, I turned around and asked him, I just said, have you ever thought about writing your own autobiography? He said, no, I'm not going to do that. In case you want to write the biography, go ahead, if you like it, he said. And thus started a journey to unravel this great, the complexities of this very great man and the contributions he has made for this nation and those to the most important parts of the world like Africa and many other continents, and become an icon to the world. And that's what he is today.
Okay. Glad you made this effort, because for a journalist, for students, for business managers, pretty much everyone who has even the faintest interest will benefit from this. There are multiple chapters. Of the 35, I'm quite struck by the one that talks about a quest for excellence. But before I get to that, I want to begin by asking you, the ability of Mr. Tata to speak truth to power after he joined, to sort of talk about uncomfortable facts or participate in decision making during meetings where he was still starting up in some ways. Since you make this point, I want to pose this question to you. Mr. Ratan Tata's ability to speak truth to power, can that be replicated in today's era by ordinary managers, to be able to say that in front of their CEOs or to the promoter companies? Is that even possible to replicate? Because somebody would say that Mr. Tata was able to do it because he had the surname Tata, and that's why he could get away with being very frank and very outspoken at times.
I said he had only a surname Tata, but at that time, there was no evidence of him being linked to the Tata family or to Jamshedji for that matter. When he was succeeding JRD, he was considered almost an outsider. They said he did not have the experience, he was a green on, and that he did not belong to the Tata family. So at that time, Tata's surname did not carry much weight with JRD when he chose Mr. Tata as his successor. Mr. Tata was chosen because of his honesty, because of his integrity, because of his vision, his scientific approach, and his modern outlook. That is the reason. Now, if you ask me, was he honest? Did he say the truth? Yes, he did. But then you need to understand, truth may be uncomfortable in the beginning. Truth can annoy certain people. But to sustain your impression, to sustain your position, to sustain the logic, you have to be truthful. That's what Mr. Tata said. In fact, he encouraged every employee of his, especially senior managers, to speak the truth, whether it's the acquisition of chorus. If you remember, he went from chair to director and said, speak your mind, be truthful. Shall we go for this acquisition or not? So therefore, I find enormous value in being truthful. In today's world, if you really ask me, if you tell the truth and say it again and again and logically well without being rude, I am sure your CEO or your chairman would appreciate you more rather than being an yes man. Because when you're an yes man, maybe you may be able to get into the good books of your chairperson for 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years. But when he finds that this man also gave me the wrong advice, the person who speaks the truth will ultimately be considered the right person for important jobs. This is what I feel.
What
And
about
it's very important to be truthful.
What about taking this philosophy of Mr. Tata into the government and the steel frame and the bureaucracy that you served? Can someone who is not a yes man hope to survive using this playbook from Mr. Ratan Tata's life?
Sid, you're asking me a tough question, but let me tell you something. There are a lot of misunderstanding about the steel frame and the bureaucracy. Let me tell you something. We have the freedom in the government to disagree with the minister and with your secretary, okay? But you need to be logical. You need to be sound, and you should have no axe to grind. Believe me, not me, there are many of my colleagues who have done exceptionally well in service by speaking the truth, logically arguing the case. And when you do that, the powers that even the minister will understand that the man is talking sense, and therefore you have to listen to him. Yes, men is like it's like a spot, it's like a flash. You may give light immediately, but it cannot be sustained. So at the end of the day, if you can logically put forth your case, whether in government or in the media, as in your case, or the TV or the print media, if you are able to speak the truth, then ultimately truth will triumph. There is no doubt regarding that.
Truth will triumph. If Mr. Ratan Tata had joined the government of India and been appointed a collector after joining the IAS, would he have succeeded in the IAS?
I think he would have been a pathbreaker. I think he would have been a lodestar for many reasons. Number one, many people in the IAS tend to be arrogant. I'm not trying to say everybody is arrogant. But Mr. Ratan Tata, because of his humility, because of his empathy, because of his compassion, because of his consideration for the poor, I think he would have been a great harbinger of change. He would have been a model for all the IAS officers to follow. Just like he's an icon in business today, he would have been an icon in the civil service. He would have been a trailblazer according to him.
Okay, a trailblazer. Let's come to this pursuit of excellence, quest of excellence that you write about. What was his quest all about? Was it about perfect products or maximum profits?
You know, Sid, I have actually devoted 4 huge chapters for his big bang economic reforms, okay? Let me talk about quest for intelligence. Quest for excellence is only one part of it. Now, quest for excellence for him is based on the American concept, which was, there's an act called Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Improvement Act 1987, which was propounded by President Reagan. That is for the improvement of quality. In fact, the Tata Group absorbed it and started what is called the JRD Quality Value Award. And the underpinning of it was the need for the Tata companies to strive for excellence in quality. Mr. Ratan Tata is not about profit. Please understand, the Tata as a group actually stands for trusteeship concept, which means You hold the wealth on behalf of the society and return it to them after fulfilling a social goal. The Tata Trust today exists only in order to serve the society. Unlike many other conglomerates, corporation, industrial houses, the profits entirely which Tata Sons make and give to Tata Trust go only for philanthropy. So please understand, his is not. Let me give you one or two examples. We have the MD of Tata Chemicals, Mr. Mukund. One day, Mr. Tata called him and said, we need to double fortify salt with iron and iodine. He said, because we need to improve the health status of women and children, especially pregnant women, because a lot of them were suffering from anemia. So it did not matter to him whether their profit level would come down. Let me take this forward. People would not have known that Tatas would be getting less profit for a common man, whether iodine is mixed or in the salt or iron is mixed. It does not matter. But for him, it was a social goal to be fulfilled. The second example I'll give you is about in 1993, the Tata Motors joined together with Cummins engine to produce high quality diesel engine, environment friendly diesel engines, much higher standards of protection of environment. He did it primarily in order to serve a social cause, a common cause, and national cause. And quality was uppermost in his mind. For instance, I'm not going into too many details, but just to tell you, in the JRD QV award, there's a 100 marks matrix. In that, maximum marks was given for customer focus. That is 200 marks or 20%. And that meant quality. And quality was uppermost in his mind. And he told the Tata companies, benchmark yourself to the best in the world. He said, Indian customers may not require it, but we have to give them the best quality possible. And therefore, benchmark yourself to the best in the world, wherever it is. And he made an example of it. He said Tata Motors is entered into several tie-ups in order to improve quality, for instance, spot welding. And there are similar kinds of technical tie-ups he actually brought into play in Tata Motors. So these are the examples. So therefore, for him, it was purely a matter of quality for the nation and the country.
As a reporter, I've seen many crucial episodes in the Tata sort of business history, including their forays in telecom and so many other things. And the one realization that I had was that while his humility, while his approach, and we used to see that play out when he would come and see people in government in Delhi, for example, I always got this sense that he was someone who would not have backed away from a fight when it came to that. If the situation demanded, he would not back away. For those people who are occupying corner offices today or aspire to become C-suite executives in corporate India, Dr. Mathew, what can you share for them from Ratan Tata's approach in terms of success and putting your foot down when the situation so requires them?
Sid, I don't know what is given you the impression that Mr. Tata is a Mike Tyson. He's not a Mike Tyson, let me tell you that. He's not a man who will box, who will get into the ring to fight, okay? He will put his foot down when principles are at stake. Otherwise, he is not a man who will fight. Fighting is not in his nature.
What
but
about
at the
Singur?
same time,
what about Singur then? The decision to move away
let
from
me
there?
come to the point.
Yeah.
Let me come to the point. Okay, let me tackle that first. Singur, he didn't stand up and fight. He said, if you put a gun in the temple, either you have to pull the gun or shoot me. And he got shot and he walked away. Did he fight? He did not fight. He tried to persuade. He wanted to give West Bengal a shot at industrialization. So he did not fight. This is not fight. He would only fight when principles are at stake. For instance, if there is an accusation of corruption, he's not going to tolerate it. You know the famous case of Dilip Fence, who was supposed to be his blue-eyed boy, but when he turned
Tata Capital,
foul,
absolutely.
yes, when he Tata Finances, and then what happened? He did things against the ethical anchors of the group. He showed no mercy. That is not a fight. That is standing for principle. And that's what it is. And I think modern CEOs too, whether it's in the government too, you can stand your ground provided your goals are sanguine, your goals are patriotic, your goals are nationalistic and not selfish.
Absolutely. And since you brought up the matter about Tata Capital, one must also note for our viewers here that every single rupee that was owed by that troubled business was paid back. Not a single rupee was defaulted upon, and I think that's one of the key lessons of the Tata way of doing things that Dr. Mathew you allude to. I want to take another example to make it relevant for our viewership. The purchase of Air India, in some ways taking off a headache for the government of India, although the government of India has retained all the debt, and then adding some headaches in terms of public relations as Air India seeks to improve the quality of its service and turn around its fleet. What can you share with us and our audience about what really drove Mr. Tata's ambition in civil aviation? He was a pilot, that everyone knows, but why take on this massive headache and that project which is still underway towards improvement?
See, as regards Air India is concerned, if you really ask me, there are two important components to that decision. One is the fact that it was emotive in nature. Okay, I'm not apportioning higher priority to this. I'm not doing that. Emotive because Air India was closest to JRD's heart. JRD started Tata Motors, JRD started Tata Chemicals, but Air India was closest to his heart also because recently he was a pilot. And Air India was a showcase to the world. When, in the 1960s, 70s, it was one of the best airlines in the world. Okay. And even Mr. Tata knew that his mentor, JRD, was very, very sad, and it tormented him when he was removed as chairman of Air India by the government. During the time of Morarji Desai, he was just unceremoniously removed. So first is to get your best boy back into your fold. Like, a sort of garvapsi, okay, if you like to put it like that. You want to bring your Maharaja back home. And is it the same Maharaja? No. This is a wounded Maharaja. And please understand, Tatas have the confidence. I think Mr. Chandra has the confidence that they will be able to turn around Air India. And I believe that it will happen. He himself had told me that they have the confidence. Give them some more time. He said, we don't do anything in small scale. We do everything in big scale, achieve big scale. And over a period of time, I think they'll be able to turn this around and bring Air India back as a symbol, as an epitome of India's airline success. This is what I think will happen. But please, Sid, I need to make a statement here. Mr. Tata never insisted that you go ahead and get Air India. He said, please get it if it can be made financially viable. And which he knew it could be. So that is their foray into airlines.
Dealing with the government is part and parcel of any Indian CEO's life, despite ease of doing business, despite the reforms that have been happening for 3 decades and more, and many more will continue to happen. There is definitely a bipartisan consensus regarding that. What lessons does Mr. Ratan Tata's approach towards external stakeholders, particularly the government and regulators, hold, and what can you share with us, Dr. Mathew, for Indian executives to hopefully emulate and adopt?
See, as regards Mr. Tata's philosophy is concerned, For him, it is nation first, people second, society third, and Tatas fourth. The group exists in order to bring about change in the society by contributing its wealth and expertise. Now, in dealing with the government, I will have to admit that the Tatas have a tremendous advantage because they don't do business for profit. This is a point I have been repeating, and I never get tired of repeating this. That's because their goal is more social in nature than commercial in meaning. So therefore, when you talk about, see, let me give you an example. In the 1990s and 1980s, they would talk about takeover. And most of the companies, the majority shareholders were government organizations like LIC, etc. But would the government allow the Tatas to be taken over? The answer is no. Why? Because they symbolize the epitome of normative values and standards. And the towering personality of JRD, who was known for his impeccable integrity, honesty, and meaningful purpose and doing things for the nation. So therefore, they stand at a completely different level. And I still believe the CEOs of the modern times, if you have a social goal in mind, I think any government would be receptive because it will result in the development of the society and the people. So that's the lesson you need to draw from Mr. Tata's philosophy.
Since we discussed so many things, including his qualities, I must also ask you, what in your mind as an author were Mr. Tata's flaws, especially when it came to business?
That's a tough question, but I will still answer it. I've been accused of saying that I've been too reverential to Mr. Tata. I have only one question to ask those who make that statement. Give me an instance where I have praised Tata where he doesn't deserve to be praised. Give me one instance. And I will say that I'm wrong. The very reason that I took this as an independent project is to make an impartial assessment, objective assessment of his work, just like Walter Isaacson did with Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. What are his flaws? One, he's very trusting of people. He will easily trust people. That is his flaw. Second is that he can be overly committed to society without looking at the dangers which may be embedded in that decision. Let me give you the example of choosing West Bengal. Why did he, honestly speaking, many of us would not have chosen West Bengal like you would not have chosen my state, Kerala, because it is almost the crucible of revolutionary ideas and militant trade unions, as you know. So will the Tatas go there? Yes. Now, why did he go? Was Mr. Tata unaware of the fact that he could face labor problems? No, he was aware. Why did he go? Because he wrote to Basudeb Bhattacharya, Tata Group would need to help West Bengal re-industrialize. And he said the nano project alone would bring West Bengal almost 10,000 jobs. And he wrote in a letter to then Chief Minister Basudeb Bhattacharya and said, I will collaborate in the development or reindustrialization of the state. Now, these are his two basic flaws which I find. The third, which I would not consider a flaw, but although some may, he is very reticent. He would not speak at all. And as a result of which, what happens is that people used to take him for granted. People would think that he has no opinion. But the man was very, very deep. It's like still waters run deep. So these are the only flaws that I could. As a human being, is there any other flaw? I honestly speaking, have spoken to him for hundreds of hours, spoken to all his friends, starting from Henry Kissinger, Alan Greenberg, to Henry Strass of Cummins, and also his girlfriend. Okay, Carolyn Jones, his first love in the US. And all of them, not even one said he has any major flaw. On the other hand, people talk about him in such glowing terms that I feel embarrassed even to recall. Lest people should say I'm again being reverential to him.
Before I ask you the final question, one quick follow-up. Since you spoke about this being an independent project and you have not taken payment or hospitality from the Tatas for this book, did Mr. Tata get to review this manuscript?
See, let me tell you something. One thing, this is what I want to emphasize. Now, why did I take this as an independent project? Sid, you need to understand this. Let's say 20 or 30 years from now, when there is not too much to recall about Mr. Tata or what he has done or what his companies had done under his watch, people will look at this book and say, oh, this book is commissioned by Tata, or the author was paid 10 crores or 15 crores or 20 crores by Tata. To that extent, the value of the narrative in this book would have been lost to history. It would have been a disservice to Mr. Tata and the nation if I would have taken any form of assistance, whether cash or kind, from him, because to that extent, people will doubt its objectivity. And when you doubt its objectivity, the moral lessons which are spread throughout the pages of the book would be lost to the society, to the nation, and future generations. I just could not do that. And therefore, I completely funded this project from my personal funds. Otherwise, I'd not, Sid, I don't know if, I think you know that in government, I was offered a fantastic post-retirement job. I gave it up because the opportunity to study the philosophy of this great man, I will say openly a great man, because he's not like us. He had the kind of values which are extraordinarily rare. And this is my favorite phase. In him, you can see the existence of characteristics of opposite polarities, housed with seamless integration, like aggressiveness in business, but empathy and compassion. That is what, and if you see the last sentence, I said, a fierce capitalist with an implacable socialist heart is what I will describe. And therefore, it was my duty to ensure that I keep myself shielded from any form of accusation that I have praised him where praise was not due.
Since you speak about the very last sentence, I want to end this conversation by asking you to tell our viewers and whetting their appetite just a bit, not to give away the entire story so that people can still read this story. What is the connection of this German torpedo fired on the 6th of November, 1916 with the life and times of Mr. Ratan Tata? This is an absolutely fantastic beginning. So tell us the story behind the German torpedo.
Thank you, Sid. You know what? In order to do research on this topic, I had even gone to the American Congress Library. I found a letter from their German minister called Zimmerman, addressed to the American Secretary of State. They were talking about, they were wondering why was this ship SS Arabia torpedoed. U-boat captain, route normally used by auxiliary ships of war, okay? And therefore he torpedoed it. And how did it change the history? Please understand that on the, that is Sir Ratan Tata, the second son of Jamshedji Tata, Lady Navjbai Tata, his assistant and nurses were traveling with him to London for treatment. And what happened was that after the torpedo, the ship sunk. And it caused a lot of trauma to all those people who survived. And they had to, they had to suffer cold winds, rain, and that hastened and that aggravated the illness of Sir Ratan Tata. And he passed away in St. Ives shortly thereafter. Now, what has that got to do with Mr. Ratan Tata? In Parsi community, there is a ceremony called the Uthamnu ceremony, okay? That is on the third day of the death of a Parsi. The priest and the son would stand and ask for alms or donations for philanthropy. But Sir Ratan Tata died childless, and therefore a decision was taken by the second son of Dorab Tata, the second son of Jamshedji, Dorab Tata, Sakatlava, his wife, Sir Dorab Tata's wife, Mirbai, that they should find a son to be adopted by Lady Navjbai Tata. And Sir Ratan Tata's, as Ratan Tata's widowed wife, they adopted Neville Tata, the father of Mr. Ratan Tata. And if it were not for the Torpedo, there could be a possibility that Sir Ratan Tata would not have died. If Sir Ratan Tata would not have died, then perhaps Neville Tata would not have been adopted by Navjot as an adopted, and history would have been completely different. So a Torpedo may have, to me, in all probability, changed the history of Tata Sons.
That's an absolutely fantastic beginning to a wonderful, full of details book that you have very clearly labored on, Dr. Mathew. Knowing your approach while you were in government, very detailed, very methodical, and very intense with whatever you do. I know this project must have been equally intense for you. I thank you for this effort and wish you all the very best with this book. And
thank you, Siddharth, for your very, very kind words. At least you remember our time in the finance ministry.
And many more books to come to you, Dr. Mathew. Thank you very much for your time. Viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this conversation. Do go and pick up more details of this fascinating book if you have any interest in knowing the story of the House of Tatas and Mr. Ratan Tata himself. This will have many eye-opening details. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Easynomics. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is your favorite show, Daily Calls, a show that addresses all the key questions that you send us on your stock portfolio, on the stocks that are on your radar, those which are bleeding in this correcting market, and all of those where you actually see some opportunity in this market as well. So we will be discussing all of these questions with the top market experts who will be joining in on the show. But how do you send us your questions? The WhatsApp number is flashing on your screens. Send in all your questions on this number. Don't forget to mention your name, your location and your contact details when you send us all these